Minister and colleagues in these chambers, a very good afternoon to you all. I'd like to add my contributions to the motion before the House. A few of the things have been mentioned by the colleagues who spoke before me. Mr. Speaker, talking about retaining expatriate staff at the university has been a major challenge, and I note the Standing Committee's suggestion that a more vigilant approach to be undertaken with the Department of Immigration to retain them if possible, if positions cannot be filled locally. In terms of some background information, under the current immigration legislation, the university can only issue 3-year contracts, minimum length of a work permit for expatriates. And positions held by expatriates must be advertised to ensure that there is no better qualified local candidate. This actually allows our locals to be employed by the university. This uncertainty, I think, leads some expatriates to seek job overseas before their contract comes up for renewal, resulting in the unnecessary loss of highly qualified academics, which is a major issue for the university. Indeed, a more positive effect is that the university is more likely to lose, as mentioned, the best expatriate staff, while the mediocre hang in the hope of having their positions renewed. And I would agree that at times when we talk about quality, we need to have local, we need to also encourage our local qualified staff to take over these positions as well. If I can give you some numbers, the number of expatriate staff fell from 154 in 2014 to 98 by 2018. During this period, 23 expatriate staff also gained Fijian citizenship, including 5 medical doctors. So in net terms, Mr. Speaker, 33 more expatriate staff left the university than were recruited between 2014 to 2018. Because of the re-employment of expatriate staff is governed by the legislation, and the length of the time it takes to obtain a work permit has increased to 6 months. This is again a major obstacle to the university recruiting and retaining highly qualified expatriate staff. But it is largely outside university's control, and that is something that we need to look at, as the committee suggests. The university has also developed a campus master plan to provide accommodation. Accommodation has always been an issue, and accommodation for its students. And we are told that only 10% of the students are currently accommodated at the residential hostels. The recommendation that the university continues with exploring public-private partnership with Investment Fiji and the Fiji Development Bank to curb this problem is ongoing. The 15-year campus master plan that was developed in 2018 and approved by Council in 2019, if I can just give you a considerable update, the progresses that have been made. The Research and Development Laboratory and Workshop Complex at Derry campus was completed in early 20. Honorable Prasad mentioned about the Lambasa campus. This project is under the Construction Implementation Unit, managed by the Construction Implementation Unit and the Ministry of Economy. So we'll hope that the Minister of Economy will be able to provide an update on that. The Nasinu Sports Complex, worth 10 billion, is scheduled for completion in later 2020. The Business School Complex at Nasinu, again, worth 28 million, is also scheduled for completion later this year. The 3-story building at the Fiji Maritime Academy is well underway and is also scheduled for completion in 2020. This is at a cost of $16 million. Phase 1 of the Veterinary Science Hospital and Laboratory Complex has been completed, the building has been designed, and the tender for construction has been issued. Work will start when the 4 projects underway are completed, and hopefully in the near future. A new School of Creative Arts complex has been designed and is also in the campus master plan. Mr. Speaker, the major challenges in terms of capital funding. The university aims to generate an operating surplus of $20 million and sets just over $10 million each year for depreciation, so that it can invest $30 million a year in new capital projects without depleting reserves. The government has allocated the university a capital grant of 15 to 20 million a year in the recent years. The current slowdown in the economy is reducing the university's ability to generate surpluses, and we hope that this will improve in the near future. Mr. Speaker, while the university is in the view of reviewing the tuition fee in the future, the committee suggests that they pursue other income streams and investment opportunities to cushion the impact of the tuition fee, so there is minimum impact on the students and the University Council is looking into that. The only comprehensive revision of tuition fees was in 2011, and this was effective from 2012, when a harmonized set of tuition fees for 6 government colleges that merged to create FNU in 2010 was adopted. Since that time, there has been no across-the-board increase for tuition fees. Over the period of 2012 to 2019, consumer price inflation has averaged 3.9. In other words, over this period, consumer prices rose 30.7%. In 2019, FNU's tuition fee income was 67.8 million. If tuition fees had been indexed to consumer prices in 2019 tuition income, we would have the income for FNU would have been around 88.6 million. Unfortunately, it did not happen. In other words, the failure to fully index meant that FNU's tuition fee income was 20.8 million lower than what it might have been. Mr. Speaker said between 2015 to 2017, the need to index tuition fee was offset by rising government's operating grant, which increased from 36 million to 53 million over the period. However, the base operating grant has been unchanged at 53 million for the last 3 budgets. In 2019, the new council approved a 3% across-the-board tuition fee increase to ensure that it could approve an operating budget of for 2020, which generated a small 1% operating surplus. Without the increase, the university would have had no budget for an operating deficit. Mr. Speaker said fees at FNU are significantly lower than USP, which adjusts its tuition fees each year. Getting a precise percentage difference is problematic because USP's website only lists tuition fees for 2018, and it has different prices depending on the mode of studying and the degree structure. Any percentage calculation would need to weight the tuition fee for different courses by a number of students enrolled in every course, and of course this information is not publicly available. Mr. Speaker said that the Tertiary Scheme Loans Board advises that 85% of all tertiary students in Fiji are funded, with the remaining 50% who are private or international. Mr. Speaker, so I'd like to conclude by commending the work of the University Council, the work of the deans and the college staff, and of course all the Fijian students who have placed their trust in our premier national university for quality and accessible education. I commend the report, Mr. Speaker, sir. Thank you.
I thank the Honourable Minister Akbar for the